Would you be the jerk for not acknowledging Father's Day to your own husband? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for setting a boundary with my cousin's girlfriend who always accuses us of being nepo babies? I, 28-year-old female, come from a big family and we're very comfortable financially speaking. My family members' mentality has always been to invest in us kids and do everything to help us succeed in life. That being said, my brother, I, and our cousins were sent to good schools, had a lot of opportunities when it came to extra activities, and were helped to land high-paying jobs. We were always grateful for what we got, for our family support, and we did everything in our power to make them proud and become great professionals and I would say decent human beings. Now, all of us continue the same pattern for the kids in the family. I don't have kids yet, but my brother has a daughter and one of our cousins has a son, both kids close in age. All of us dote on the kids, not in the sense of turning them into spoiled brats, but contributing to helping them succeed and have great experiences. One of my cousins, Jake, 32-year-old male, started bringing his girlfriend Susan, 30-year-old female, around our family and, well, she doesn't really understand our dynamic. She comes from a different background and I feel she's been very nasty towards us for no reason, but still we kept silent and gave her time to adjust. The conflict between us happened a few days ago. We all got together for a family celebration and while being there, I surprised the kids with something I knew they would like to try. So, my niece and nephew fell in love with anime, Japanese culture, and of course the Japanese language. I've arranged for both of them to meet with a guy that I know who is a Japanese teacher for private lessons. Susan once again started with her remarks and said something like, "Of course you got everything you want when you're a nepo baby." For the first time, I was not nice to her anymore. I told her I don't see her logic since many kids get to attend private lessons and you don't need to be a nepo baby to do so. She said that not everybody can afford private lessons or have access to these kinds of lessons so fast, and it's all related to privilege. I kept calm, but told her, "Susan, you've been making nasty remarks towards us for some time now, and you need to stop." I didn't buy the kids expensive gadgets, cars, or whatnot. I've gifted them an opportunity to learn and develop as individuals, and if you have a problem with it, you need to deal with it on your own. I understand that not everybody can afford this, but I'm not responsible for all the kids in the world. Their parents are, and I won't feel bad for helping my family when I'm able to do it. I feel like she's bitter of what we have and I can understand it until a certain point. I'm aware that we indeed are nepo babies, but it's not like we asked to be. Our family was able to give us this status. We're also able to give it to the kids in our family, but I don't think we need to feel horrible about it. It is what it is, and if she doesn't like us as a family, she's free not to come. But I wonder, am I the jerk for what I said to her? So I guess what I'm really confused about here is what is she even claiming is a nepo baby thing? Like, I understand maybe if you're like working in a field or an industry where maybe you're not like accredited for, yet you and all of your siblings have really high paying jobs with responsibilities that you shouldn't be able to even be near with your level of skill. Like, sure, in that situation I can understand somebody being like, "Oh, a bunch of nepo babies," but it's not like OP on this kid's 10th birthday is gifting them 5% shares in the Los Angeles Lakers or something. Like, what is inherently nepo baby anything about buying a kid Japanese lessons? Whispering Wavering commented, "This isn't even what nepo babies means. What the heck?" Of course you're not the jerk, and I'm sure Susan won't be complaining about nepo babies if your cousin is silly enough to marry her and her kids receive the same privilege. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk if I don't make a quilt as a gift? My father-in-law is retiring and texted me in early April saying he needed me to help sewing a quilt for his class. He's a 6th grade teacher. He said he wants them to each make a square and just needs someone to sew straight lines and make him a quilt. I told him at that time that I wouldn't be able to do it and haven't heard a peep about it until today. The backstory is, I was just finishing up a graduate degree which finished in early May, and I was in the crunch time of finals, projects, and presentations. I got a sewing machine as a birthday present for my in-laws the year before, and it's been something I've been playing around with for the past almost 2 years. This has been a nice creative outlet, and I've made several projects, but would consider myself a self-taught beginner. I have had several conversations about my lack of time and energy to get into quilt making, but that I admire the craft and the people who put so much time and energy into it. Ultimately, I declined back in April because of the time frame, and I'm really not sure I have the ability to not mess up something handmade by a bunch of children. Not to mention, I don't have any interest in sewing a quilt for anyone ever. Tonight was the graduation, and the kids gave them their squares all hand-tied together. This was quite a surprise to me, and I was speechless. The job looks homemade, but charming. Admittedly, it could fall apart any minute, but it's very sweet. My mother-in-law turns to me during the ceremony and says, "I'm excited for you to sew together the quilt." What? I replied before I could even think, "I'm not." My husband pressed several times, asking if I would do it, and during the graduation ceremony, I was a bit defensive and said, "I don't know why we're having this conversation right now." I said no. I feel set up and betrayed. I have more time now that I graduated and could feasibly do it. I really feel like I have no choice and was backed into a corner. Now he's ticked and not talking to me, and mother-in-law is disappointed. Not sure what father-in-law thinks yet, except that he was calm about it initially. Am I the jerk? I think what it is they're really trying to bully OP here because of the convenience factor. It's free, it's accessible, and did I mention it would be free? Bottom line is, OP doesn't want to do it. It is a lot of work. It is a time commitment. If OP doesn't want to do it, I don't think that inherently makes them a bad person for turning it down. It's kind of like anybody who found a hobby and their parents turn around or their grandparents turn around and say, "You're so good at that thing, why don't you do this for me? You're so darn talented with those computers, why don't you make something up for your nephew?" Thoracic Bunk commented, "There are professionals who do this. Find one and get a bid, and then you can present it to your husband as a present he can facilitate for his father. The price tag of such a service should help underline that this is not some trivial task. Your time and effort is valuable. Don't let yourself feel like a jerk for protecting them. You get to say no. Find a comparable skill you could pimp your husband out for. Say, building and maintaining a website for your mom? Giving a neighbor's car a full tune-up or detail?" Sasmataz commented, "As a quilter, I love this response. I would also consider offering to lend your in-laws a sewing machine. If they think it's just sewing straight lines, they can do it themselves, right?" Our next story is, am I the jerk for enforcing basic boundaries on my daughter's sleepover? I, 42-year-old male, have 2 kids living with me, my daughter Anya, 17-year-old female, and my stepson Noah, 14-year-old male. Noah's mom passed a few years ago, and I've had full custody since. He's had a rough go of it, but he's a good kid with his quirks. He's not antisocial or shy, but he doesn't appreciate having his space invaded, and when very upset, he can kinda shut down. Anya is much more outgoing and has lots of friends. She asked to have a sleepover this weekend with 4 of them. I said yes, of course, but given that the friends who were coming were pretty loud and have a tendency to crowd Noah, I told her to make sure they don't go into her brother's room. Also to keep things down after 11 so that the house can sleep. In my opinion, these are not strict rules. To my surprise, I came upstairs to check on them at about 10. They're 17. I didn't think I need to check on them every hour or something, and they were in Noah's room. And they looked like they'd been there a while. 2 were literally sitting on his bed with him there. One of them was flipping through his sketchbook, another was messing with his other stuff, and they were all kind of giggling in this weird way. Noah was clearly upset. He didn't say anything or move, but there were tears in his eyes and he didn't respond when I tried to talk to him. I told the girls to get out right then and that I was calling every single one of their parents. Anya was pretty upset with me, but I told her that I gave them 2 rules and they failed spectacularly. I did actually call all of their parents and sent them home as soon as possible. Anya blew up, saying that I embarrassed her. I told her to go to her room and that we would speak on this in the morning. I spent about 20 minutes with Noah before he decided he wanted to cool down on his own, and I went back to my daughter, who chose not to speak to me. It's late, both of my kids are hopefully asleep, and I'm left not knowing if I handled things right. Am I the jerk? So I think it's pretty clear Noah was very visibly upset by what happened here. It's crazy because there's some people I've known in my life who would hear this story and go, Noah should have been loving that, having all those girls in his room or blah blah blah. As somebody with not a huge social battery myself, I definitely cherish my safe space, especially when I don't really know the people or like in a group scenario like that. He's clearly upset. It was one of the rules the dad established. I don't think OP did anything wrong. Melodic Dark 6545 commented, "You handled things perfectly okay. You set very reasonable rules and your daughter decided to not care and upset Noah. I'll ground her. She doesn't care to have embarrassed Noah, but she sure cares that she couldn't get her way. What was she expecting after she broke the rules?" Wasted Breath 28 commented, "And the precedent to be set if there were no consequences, not only for breaking the rules, but for continuing to violate someone's boundaries while they're visibly uncomfortable. She will encounter all sorts of people with different issues or trauma, and she needs to recognize when she's crossing a line." Our next story is, am I the jerk for moving into a studio apartment away from my mother-in-law who moved in? Long story short, my boyfriend's mom is poor and had to move into my boyfriend and I's apartment last month because my boyfriend's brother, who lived with her, got them both evicted. He stole her car and wrecked it into their apartment and almost ended someone. He's currently in rehab, and before she moved in, I sat down with my boyfriend and laid out the requirements of her living here. She must cut off contact with his brother for his own good and never invite him over, as I'm afraid of him retaliating at our apartment and getting us evicted too. And she should stop enabling him with a constant safety net to continue his substance use. I know that sounds harsh, but it was the only way to actually force him to get help. This has been an almost decade-long battle of her enabling him, and he's not getting any better. My boyfriend agreed to this, and she agreed. Cut to 2 weeks in, I come home from work. My boyfriend and her are laughing about how they took his brother to Golden Corral when I was gone, and he was so high he was nodding off in the food. I was so upset that not only did she break the cardinal rule that I set for her, but that my boyfriend went along with it and did it too. I told him I felt betrayed and that he had just set a precedent to her that she can do whatever she wants now because any rule set isn't actually going to be enforced, clearly by his example. He told me he did it because he thought it was too harsh after the fact without telling me he had changed his mind, and thereby going against our agreement. I otherwise wouldn't have let her live here rent-free. My boyfriend said putting her on the street was too harsh of a punishment for breaking the rules. But isn't that the point? Now she's telling us we need to do her chores when we pay the rent because she doesn't want to do them, knowing he won't enforce or kick her out because he ultimately can't face the guilt of doing so. He has attachment issues with her and a heavy guilt complex. Our apartment lease is up in a couple of months, and now that we're moving, she asked us, so where are we moving to? Fully expecting a free ride and free rent at our next place. I was so dumbfounded because she's only supposed to be here until she got housing, but low-income housing waiting lists can be months to years long. I don't want to live with her anymore because she walks all over us and causes tension between my boyfriend and I. He will never put her on the street because he's controlled by his guilt. When I asked what he plans to do, he said he isn't taking her to our next place, but that would ultimately leave her on the street. And I know deep down, even if we initially move without her, she'll be back in a week or two because he'll feel guilty. I want to move into a studio apartment now, knowing that I don't believe he's going to let her go, and I voiced this as a real possibility to him, but I'm being framed as trying to dismantle our relationship. Am I the jerk? Look, there's nothing morally wrong about him having an extreme guilt about putting his own mom on the street. Problem is, it's understandable that you probably don't want to live with your partner's parents long term when you're not even married. I think really it communicates all OP needs to know when they say, you are dismantling our relationship by refusing to let mom live with us. It really kind of does boil down to OP. Do you want to live with him and his mom for the rest of your days? Probably. Or likely move on. I mean, how else is this really going to resolve in a way that OP's going to be happy? Northern Lit Up commented, not the jerk, don't sign a lease with him again. His word about how he'll handle his mother is worth less than nothing. She'll be back. Our next story is, am I the jerk? My ex's son is angry I didn't go to his wedding after the split. My 44-year-old female, ex-fiancé, 48-year-old male, cheated on me just over a year ago. We were both on a second relationship and each of us brought kids into the relationship. His eldest son, 28-year-old male, never lived with us as he was an adult by the time I came into the picture. I caught my ex cheating on June 15th and his son was set to get married on June 29th. To say that this broke me is an understatement. He cheated with one of my best friends, which made things even more traumatic. His son still wanted me to come to the wedding, but I didn't think I could go and be around everyone with their stares and whispers. I thanked him and told him how sorry I was, but that I did not want to make their special day all about the gossip of the breakup. I also explained that I didn't think I was strong enough to be there. His son is angry with me for not coming. I understand that parents put their kids first, but in my opinion, that's what I did. Having me on the verge of tears and falling apart would have ruined everything. Am I the jerk? I do regret not being strong enough to just suck it up and go, so maybe I am the jerk. Ultimately, I'm leaning towards OP not being the jerk, but I kind of wish OP included a detail of how long they'd been in that ex's son's life. All OP said was they were an adult by the time OP came into the picture. The ex's son being 28, that could have been like up to a decade. You know, if OP was such a major part of their life and they wanted them there so bad, maybe it skews it a little bit. But ultimately, OP knew they wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be kind of a wreck. Through really no fault of OP's own, it would probably cause like some level of redirection and focus on them. They didn't want that for themselves or the ex's son. I think that's a considerate thing. Whether LL6043 commented, not the jerk. Son is being immature and having a little bit of tunnel vision. It is bittersweet that he cares so much for you still, despite being an adult when he met you. Your ex is the one who ruined this situation, not you. You did the right thing by keeping to yourself for this event, even if his son can't see that right now. Give him your well wishes, and he'll move on. Angler Fish Tacos commented, I don't think this is necessarily about care for her and everything to do with optics. Based on the timeline OP laid out above, the wedding is 2 weeks after she caught her fiancé cheating. The ex is the father of the groom, and it's going to be definitely immediately obvious that his fiancé is not there and that it's weird. People will notice and probably talk, and either the son or his bride are concerned about their wedding being consumed with that at their wedding. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking unnecessary money out of my daughter's pocket? Basically, I have a daughter, Emily, 16-year-old female from a previous marriage. My wife Sasha has a son the same age, Mark, 16-year-old male. Mark doesn't stay with us that often. He prefers to stay with his bio dad. That being said, when he is here, I find Mark to be a pretty good kid, polite and respectful. His dad decided to take a trip for work in the last few weeks of school, so Mark's here for a bit. He's out of the house most of the time and doesn't take up much space. He does get kind of grumpy when there's too much going on around him, especially noise, but for that, his favorite things are these expensive noise-canceling headphones, which he almost always has with him. A present from his dad. Emily's school has already finished, so she's home. The problem is that the room Mark is in sometimes has miscellaneous items put in when he's not here, and therefore Emily seems to think it's fair game to go through his stuff. I've told her to stop, but Sasha hasn't been taking it seriously in my opinion, saying that most of Mark's stuff is easy to replace. The big problem happened when Mark accidentally left his headphones in his room and Emily accidentally snapped them. Mark found out when he came home from school and flipped. He shouted at her, saying she was spoiled without anything to back it up, loud enough that my wife and I heard it from the other room. Sasha wanted me to calm things down, which I did, but I also told Emily she's replacing them. Thing is, Mark's dad offered to have someone get him a new pair immediately and that it wasn't a problem. I said Emily would pay him back, and I'm sticking with it. Emily and Sasha think that's unfair since Mark's dad can afford to buy 10 more, but I don't think you get to break someone's stuff and not pay for it. Those aren't the values I was raised with or what I want for my daughter. That being said, I do realize in this case it's kind of unnecessary and there may be better ways for her to make it up to him. Am I the jerk? Honestly, I think OP's not the jerk and I think she should pay for them back even if it was accidental, just for the added experience of not being so careless as to snap headphones like that. Like, let's excuse it and say it wasn't a thing done out of malice or any kind of real intent. I mean, what are you doing carelessly in this room full of extra stuff rifling around where you end up accidentally snapping these headphones? Like, she knows well enough that Mark's stuff is interspersed with whatever she's rifling through. At least be careful with it. Sassy Pants 2306 commented, I'm sorry, but there is no way a 16-year-old snaps headphones accidentally, especially good quality noise canceling ones. I think your daughter knew exactly what she was doing. She probably knew the importance to him too. She should pay him back regardless. She should apologize sincerely and then you all clean his room out, and while he's not present, it is locked. He gets the key, not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my dad I felt excluded after his girlfriend didn't include me in dinner? 26-year-old female, have been staying at my dad's place for a bit while I look for a new apartment. He lives with his girlfriend, 36-year-old female, and her daughter, 13. It's been okay lately, however, honestly kind of awkward. I try to stay out of the way, keep to myself, I always clean up after myself, etc. I've never been super close with this girlfriend, but I've always been polite. The other night, my dad mentioned they were going out to dinner and said I should go with them. He said it might be nice for us all to spend a little time together and get out of the house. I agreed, thinking it would be chill and maybe a good chance to ease some of the weirdness. He wasn't coming. He had some work stuff, but I figured as the one suggesting it, I was genuinely welcome. We got there, and my father's girlfriend told the host, "Table for two," and then turned to me and said something like, "Oh, I thought you were just tagging along. This is a little celebration just for her." I was kind of stunned. I didn't want to make a scene, so I just said, "Oh, okay," and walked off. I ended up getting takeout nearby and Ubering home. When I got back, my dad asked how dinner was, and I just said, "Apparently I wasn't invited after all." Now his girlfriend is saying I overreacted and made her look bad, and my dad's stuck in the middle. Her daughter also gave me a weird look when they got back, like I had ruined the night or something. I don't think I'm entitled to a free meal or anything, but I was told I was invited. It just felt really crappy to be treated like an afterthought. Am I the jerk? Update, I forgot to mention that next to the restaurant we went, there's a place that I usually meet with my friends, and my father's girlfriend knows about it because she took me a couple of times, so maybe she thought I'm headed that way? OP's not the jerk here, who goes out to a dinner celebration and brings OP along with the expectation that OP's just tagging along. Either that partner had absolutely nothing explained to them and OP was left completely in the dark and looking like a fool, like just going along just to go along. I think, unfortunately, the more likely thing is exactly what it seems. The girlfriend just didn't really want OP there. And yeah, it should reflect badly on them. The dad should see that. Royally Oki commented, "Not the jerk, she knew what she was doing. Nobody just tags along to a restaurant without going in. Your father's only in the middle if he doesn't wish to realize what his girlfriend is up to." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mom that I don't care if she leaves? I'm female 24, pregnant, living with my husband and 4 cats. My mom has struggled financially since divorcing my dad when I was young. At 18, I moved in with her after a fight with my dad, working and studying while helping her with bills. 2.5 years ago, I met my husband, quit working, graduated university, and moved into a new house with him and my cats. My husband earns well, providing a comfortable life, and began supporting my mom financially when I stopped working. Recently, she moved in with us because she couldn't afford rent, agreeing to help with chores for extra money. However, she's been toxic, constantly complaining about issues like a broken toilet, and after a man came to fix it, she complained about the man and said she had no privacy. She also invited my older sister, with whom I'm estranged. My husband said she couldn't come, leading to conflict, but he even offered to drive her somewhere where they could meet. She refused. My mom now complains about my husband to me, which makes me feel bad to the point of crying. I tell her not to get me involved, but she only tells me and never him like a coward. Then she plays the victim. Today, she threatened to move out after an argument. I told her to do what she wants and that I no longer care, and she twisted it as me kicking her out. It's exhausting, but my priority is my baby's well-being, which depends on my own. I want her to leave, but feel guilty because she has nothing. I'm not exaggerating. Every single day she complains about something or acts offended or plays the victim. She's also said that my husband is stingy for not helping her more, but this isn't communism. I'm tired. When I cry, she says I play the victim only because I'm pregnant. Like, so am I the jerk? Forgot to add, it was my husband's idea that she moved in with us temporarily. He always tries to make me happy and knew I was worrying too much about her situation. We told her from the beginning we're moving to a new house in August, so that's the deadline for her to move as well. The plan was that she could save some money here, so once we all leave, she's able to find a place, but she spent all her money on my grandma. and my grandpa died like 3 months ago, so that adds to the guilt I feel because my mom is still grieving. I think it's very obvious OP cares quite a bit, but unfortunately, it doesn't really sound like it's a healthy situation or a workable, tenable situation for OP. The bottom line here is there needs to be some space. Puzzleheaded Age 240 commented, "Your mom needs to go. This needs to be a firm decision with a firm and soon deadline if you want to save your marriage. Your mom is a professional and perennial victim. You can't fix her. You probably can't or shouldn't even help her if there's no sustainable path to self-sufficiency. Your priorities need to be your own health, your own marriage, and your own parenting journey. I know this kind of thing is mentally and emotionally exhausting, but she's a grown-up and should not be your burden. I wish you the best of luck, a healthy pregnancy, and a smooth birth, but all of it needs to start with getting your mom out of your house and your head, not the jerk." Our next story is, "Would I be the jerk if I kicked my dad's girlfriend out of our home? I really need outside opinions because I don't know if I'm being super unreasonable. My mom died when I was a teenager. In her will, she left the house to me but gave my dad a right to live in it until he dies. She inherited our family home from her parents, so it was always just in her name. Honestly, I never thought of it as my house, even though legally it is. I moved away for uni, but after I got a good job back in our hometown, I moved back in. I've been living here again for a few years now. I guess I knew deep down that my dad must have dated over the years, but he never talked about it and never introduced me to anyone, and honestly, I kind of liked it that way. I didn't want to know that he moved on. It was just us, him and me, against the world. His new girlfriend kind of appeared out of nowhere. I met her a couple of times and then suddenly she moved in without any prior discussion. I was stunned, but I tried to be happy for him. I really did. I tried my best to be polite and to keep my resentment to myself, but it's getting harder every single day. Every time I see them giggling in the kitchen or cuddled up on the sofa my mom picked out, I want to scream. My mom, who died too young, who loved my dad, who was only ever with my dad, who never got a chance to move on. And now I have to watch him do it every single day in her house, in her childhood home. I don't know, it just feels like this is so disrespectful to my mom's memory. She's redecorating, she's moved furniture, she's changed the curtains and wallpapers my mom and I picked together and reorganized the kitchen cupboards. And worse, she's been making comments like, "Have you ever thought about living independently now that you're settled in your career?" Or telling my dad that they'll need to turn my room into a nursery eventually when they have kids, as the third room is his home office. Like, what? The absolute audacity. I'm not a tenant or a guest. I own the goddamn house. My dad just has a right to live here, but I don't think that right gives him the right to just move in a partner and act like it's their shared marital home, especially when I live here too. If he wants to build a life with her, then he should at least move out and not do it in my mom's home. From what I understand, she has no legal right to live here. She's not a tenant as she pays no rent. I think I can legally kick her out anytime I want to without a court order. At best, she's an excluded occupier and can be evicted with a reasonable notice, which is classified as one rental period. And I don't even think that is applicable here. I haven't confronted him yet, but I am this close to sitting my dad down and saying all this. And if he refuses, I'm considering speaking to a solicitor and making it happen formally. I know it would cause a huge rift, but I'm so tired of feeling like a stranger in my own home. I feel like my mom is being erased, but I really love my dad and don't want to hurt him or lose him. So it's definitely going to ruffle some feathers, but I do think stuff like rearranging the house, her moving in, I feel like that's kind of more up to OP. You know, maybe if this was his wife, if they were married, there might be some kind of stronger legal leeway for her to be living there. I guess the problem is where it gets hazy is the dad has a legal right to live there, and he is inviting her in. So is she an invited guest? I don't know how that legally works. I'm not a lawyer. Super Red Fan commented, "The first time to talk was when she moved in without discussion. Second time was when she started making changes. Don't miss a third opportunity. You're already getting angry, you'll blow up soon, and it will get messy. Sit him down, explain that this house and the memories are all you have of your mom, and while you're happy he's moved on, you want it kept in the same way. He needs to move out with his new girlfriend and make new memories. do it while you have a chance to discuss it with a level head. Not the jerk for now, but you will if you delay it further. And also, your dad is a bit of a jerk if he hasn't told her the house is yours. Our next story is, am I the jerk because I didn't acknowledge Father's Day on Sunday to my husband, father of our children? For 22 years, I've acknowledged Father's Day for my husband, taught our 3 children to acknowledge it, and tried to go out of my way to make it special for him by getting gifts, making dinner, and picking up most of the chores for the day. My husband over the years has felt at times like I've not thought he was a good father. Admittedly, there have been good and not so good times where I have indeed felt like he did better and then not so great. Personally, I feel like I've made more positive comments than negative, but he's expressed over the years that he feels the opposite. Now, this last Saturday night, we were in bed talking about Father's Day the next day. He proceeded to tell me, "I'm not interested in hearing those words. Happy Father's Day. I don't want decorations, and it feels like a fake forced day." He had already decided he was cooking his own dinner, even though I had already coordinated with the kids to all show up. I got teary-eyed about it and went to sleep. The next day, I made no comments about Father's Day. There were no decorations, and the only thing I did was to try to be a little funny by putting out a piece of paper with some candy as sperm and eggs on it with a written "Thanks." I tried to make the day normal by going about my usual tasks. I admittedly probably overly compensated by seeming standoffish, because it's the first time in 23 years that I felt like I was not supposed to celebrate Father's Day. That night and since then, he's upset with me and says that I completely decided he didn't want me to acknowledge Father's Day, that there's no way I should have interpreted his comments in that way. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk here. I don't know what he's going through. Honestly, I feel like OP needs to have a greater in-depth talk and try to figure it all out, because it seems like something is disconnecting here. That said, it felt pretty clear what he was saying. He was like, "I don't want any fanfare. I don't want to hear those words." Probably a situation where he was just kind of going through it and emotionally just taxed in that moment and said some things he didn't really mean. But you'll never really know unless you can actually talk about it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not letting my friend borrow one of my designer dresses for a wedding after she called me shallow for buying them? I'm 26-year-old female, have a stable job, no kids, and I like to treat myself sometimes. I've saved up for a few designer dresses over the years. Nothing outrageous, just a handful of nice pieces I wear to special events. I'm careful with them, and they mean a lot to me because they're things I've actually worked hard for. One of my close friends, Lena, 27-year-old female, has always made snide comments about my clothes. Stuff like, "I don't get how you can spend that much on fabric," or "I could never be that shallow." I usually laugh it off, but honestly it does get under my skin. She clearly thinks I'm materialistic, even though I've never judged her lifestyle or spending habits. Anyways, she's going to a wedding soon and texted me out of the blue asking to borrow one of my dresses. No apology, no acknowledgement of the past comments, just, "You have so many, I figured you wouldn't mind." I politely said no, explaining that I don't lend them out, especially for trips where I won't be there. She snapped back that I was being selfish and dramatic, and now a few mutual friends are chiming in saying it's just a dress, but I can't help feeling like it's more than that. Why should she benefit from something she's constantly belittled me for? Am I wrong to say that even if there wasn't even the whole belittling thing about OP's dresses and the whole "I could never be that shallow," it still wouldn't put OP in the wrong if they didn't want to share any of their dresses? I mean, I feel like you can take that concept of "you have so many, I figured you wouldn't mind" and apply it to many different scenarios where you might feel a little bit more motivated to say, "No, it's completely understandable." Let's say our old buddy Jay Leno with a million zillion cars. He has so many, I figure he wouldn't mind if I took one out for a spin, right? Dramatic Mud 2265 commented, "She will definitely not be replacing it or reimbursing you if she damages it, so stick to your no. And consider how close of a friend she really is when she puts you down regularly about your interests and apparently badmouths you to others, not the jerk." OP responded commenting, "Exactly. If she ruined it, I doubt she would replace it, and yeah, I'm starting to question the whole friendship, to be honest." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not wearing a bra when my husband has his friends stay over? My husband's long-distance friends came to visit. I've met them a few times, but this is the first time they've been able to stay at our house. There are 3 of them, all males. They came over yesterday, we went out for the night, and this morning I woke up to make everyone breakfast. I was still wearing my pajamas because I didn't feel like getting dressed yet. On my way out, he asked if I was going to put on a bra. I said no. We ate the breakfast I made and he seemed quiet, but I assumed he was tired. After breakfast, we watched some TV. After that, we planned to all go out again, so I got dressed for the day. When I was getting dressed, my husband told me he was upset I didn't put on a bra. He said it was disrespectful because his friends are here and it's rude to not have one on. He kept asking why I didn't wear one, and it seemed like he was insinuating I didn't put one on to catch attention. I didn't put one on because I never wear one at home. I had a baggy t-shirt on and it made me look pretty shapeless. I don't even think you could see anything in it. Even so, it's my house too and I want to be comfortable. The only bras I have are push-up underwire bras and I'm not wearing those at home. I do not plan to wear one when we're at home with his friends, even after this, and I told him so. Am I the jerk for not wearing a bra when we had guests over? Personally, I don't think OP's the jerk. Maybe you could argue something if something seemed maybe potentially inappropriate, but from the sounds of it, it wasn't even close to being that. I guess I would be curious though what the reaction would be if it was a situation where like a friend spoke up and said, "Hey, I'm uncomfortable with that," or spoke to the husband after the fact and expressed that they were uncomfortable in some way. That said, this situation, the husband is blowing it way out of proportion. Blondie1970 commented, "Not the jerk. Buy your husband a sports cup and make him wear it if wobbling bits bother him so much. Dang. If you cannot be comfy in your own home, then guests can't stay over. Weirdo." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my brother-in-law he needs to book a hotel when he and my sister were staying at my house? My sister and her husband live across the country and decided they wanted to come visit. I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and I set up a bed in my home office because they wanted to stay at my house. They'd been here for 4 days. The bathroom has been a big problem. He spends hours in there. After the first day, I talked to my sister about it. She says he has a condition where he needs the bathroom a lot, so I let it rest. On day 3, it was even worse. There was a time where I had to excuse myself to go to the store so I could use the bathroom twice because he wouldn't leave. The last day I woke up at 4 a.m. and had to use the bathroom very badly. I knocked on the door and he said he would be out in a minute. I told him I really had to go. It took him an hour to get out. The nearby store wasn't open at that time and I had to do something I'm not happy I had to do because I couldn't wait. The next morning, I told him he needs to get a hotel. I can't be blocked from using the bathroom in my own home because he takes it hostage. I get he has a condition, but so do I. And I make sure I have my own bathroom when I travel so I don't get in the way of other people needing the bathroom. My sister and her brother-in-law were very upset and called me ableist. I told them what I had to do last night because he was in the bathroom for so long and they said I could have held it. I told them they need to leave and find a hotel or stay with other family. He just can't stay here anymore. Am I the jerk for telling my brother and sister-in-law they need to get a hotel when the plan was for them to stay with me for a week? I think it's pretty clear OP's not the jerk. You know, it's one thing if they're a bathroom regular and it feels like they're in there all the time and whatnot, but like if you wait long enough, they're going to come out. I mean, with no disrespect intended, it sounds like he's taking mini vacations in there. Like if it's that bad, he needs to be able to recognize that and find a solution that works for everybody in somebody else's house. Blondie1970 commented, "Not the jerk. If someone needs to take up that much time in the bathroom, they 100% should be getting their own accommodations so they have a private bathroom. Forcing you to go to the store is insane. If brother-in-law really needs that much bathroom time, and not just scrolling, the sister never should have asked to stay knowing it's a 1-bath house." OP responded commenting, "I have IBS and sometimes need the bathroom a lot, and that's why I always get a hotel or only stay at someone's house if there's more than 1 bathroom, but unless it's impossible, I get a hotel." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not rearranging a funeral for my cousin? My 21-year-old male dad died. It's just me and my brothers, 19-year-old male, 19-year-old male, and distant relatives. We have more family friends than we do close family, so we try to value the family we do have when we get to see them. His funeral was yesterday. Our cousin Kaylee, 24-year-old female, lived with us for much of her life because her mom struggled. Being a single mom and in and out of difficult situations, I wouldn't say my dad solely raised her, but he played a big part in it, so they were close, but since she turned 21 or so, she's moved out of the state and hasn't really come around much. Fine. She volunteered to make slideshows for the funeral. Great. One was going to be right before the eulogy and the other was going to be right after. Until yesterday, she didn't mention having any scheduling conflicts, but then sprung on us that she was picking up her mom from the airport in the morning and might be late. Fine, whatever. She would maybe miss most of the viewing. But then she starts calling during the viewing, saying that they had to eat and would be 60 to 90 minutes late, and asked if we could request to push things back. Mind you, everything was already in motion. I said maybe the order of the events could be changed, but there was too much going on and didn't get a chance to talk to the funeral home, so things proceeded as normal. I stopped answering her texts, which she assumed meant things got moved around. She eventually arrived towards the end, missed most of everything, got upset with me after, saying that I was selfish, and talking to the funeral home could have been quick and easy, and now she and her mom feel robbed. Now she's ranting on social media about her jerk family, me denying her from being able to see her tributes. Mind you, her tributes are on her dang computer or CapCut or whatever she used to make them. I stupidly texted her briefly and said that I wish it could have worked out, but she just reiterated that I'm a selfish jerk. Am I? I would sincerely hope that most people who hear this would think OP is not the jerk. You can't last second say, oh, the viewing or oh, the funeral. Hey, can you just push that back a little bit? I'm gonna have a meal first. I mean, just that alone, how it sounds to say, I'm gonna be a bit late for the funeral. Can you push it back a bit? I've gotta go get a meal first. Sorry that we made things so inconvenient for you and your meal. Powered by Chai commented, of all the things that can't be rearranged on a whim, a funeral is pretty high on the list. She shouldn't have stopped for a lunch if she was worried about making it on time. Hit a drive-thru and eat on the go. Who cares a lot commented, sorry, I hadn't read the comments this far before making the same point. That fool must have never experienced the death of a close relative and process of arranging to accommodate the need to gather together those who wish to honor and grieve it together. Slideshows are nice, sure, but a whole lot less necessary than she apparently thought. Our next story is, am I the jerk? I was yelled at today by a male coworker and clapped back. I was yelled at today by a male coworker and clapped back. Still unsure if I did the right thing. I'm part of a team of 6 developers and I'm the only woman in the team. We have several teams and I get along well with everyone. I'm usually thought of as nice to everyone and joking around, etc. I've heard several coworkers tell me that they enjoy working with me. Today, I got into an altercation with one of my male coworkers. He's stubborn and is known to have outbursts at people, especially if we don't do exactly as he wants us to. He seems to struggle with nuances and gets mad at you if you don't solve something code-related in the way that pleases him. He's been working at this company for over 10 years, whereas I've been here for a year, so there's that. I've never been micromanaged by someone as much as him, and he's not even my manager or boss. In short, the altercation was this. I was handed a document with descriptions of how certain software components in our codebase is intended to work. Some of the descriptions are newly revised, so I have to rewrite code to fit the new description. The descriptions were unclear, so I decided to email the engineer who had written the document. He is very well versed in the system design of these components. We can call him M. As I was typing my email, my male coworker exploded and was yelling, I know these things, you should ask me, stop bothering M. I'm usually cold in these situations and don't really care about his outbursts, but this one really caught me due to his usage of the words bothering. I was typing a 2-sentence email and he made it sound like I was sending M hundreds of emails. I looked back and responded, I'm sorry, are you my boss or something? I'm emailing him because I want his explanation since he's written this document. And he responded by saying, you're so rude, that's so rude of you. And I was like, yeah, then go and cry about it. When I said the last words, the entire landscape went quiet. Usually no one stands up to this coworker, and he's having angry outbursts without anyone stepping in, and this is the first time I stood up for myself. Did I do something wrong in this situation? Is it normal to have these outbursts at coworkers? I'm second guessing myself all the time, but I really feel like he's the unreasonable one. I don't think OP's outright the jerk here, but I do think their phrasing and wording leaves a little bit to be desired here. I mean, I think you're just gonna be hard-pressed for anybody to give a professional stamp on telling a coworker, yeah, then go and cry about it. I mean, don't get me wrong here, it feels very justified, but it still doesn't reflect greatly on OP. NoPaper8954 commented, okay, you aren't the jerk. He went ballistic and has done it many times before. Telling him to cry about it is definitely not nearly as bad, but it wasn't a smart move. Instead, what you should do is every time he lashes out, report it. This is the only way he will ever stop or be punished. If not, and it happens to you, then it's insanely clear that you don't want to be in this company. There is plenty of demand for people in IT, and a lot of companies are even desperate for female employees or over the moon to have them. Good luck with this nasty issue. Future Photograph 88 commented, I like this, but also keep in mind that he might not ever get talked to about this. I found it's easier for some managers to keep the status quo and expect or force employees to deal with their toxic coworkers because that's just how he or she is. It's frustrating as heck, but if that's the case, then OP will need to decide how long she's willing to put up with that treatment before she decides to leave, if it gets that bad. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking a date not to eat cured meats in my car? Quite a short one. I'm seeing a guy at the moment, just casual, no chance of anything more as I'm not looking for that. He's quite a big meat eater, whereas I'm vegan. I generally like to think I'm quite easygoing and adaptable as a vegan. I'm fine eating at a restaurant with meat eaters, and if I'm hosting a party or barbecue, I'm cool with my friends bringing their own food along if they want meat, but I don't provide it, etc. However, this guy's taken to buying packets of cured meat as a snack, and he eats them in my car in the passenger seat every time I pick him up. He travels to see me. I'll admit, a little part of me gets annoyed, as I do feel it's quite inconsiderate to eat meat in such close proximity to a vegan in that type of environment. But mostly the sight and smell of that type of meat is just really repulsive to me, and I don't think I'd want it in my car even if I wasn't vegan. The other day, I asked him if he would eat the cured meats before I pick him up, or wait until we're out of the car and back at my place before he eats them, and he got funny with me and he made a few comments about how I can't expect everyone else to cater to my veganism and he can eat what he likes. I'm a little torn here, as I do know I don't have any right to expect people not to eat meat, but I do also feel like being in my car and in such close proximity to me should warrant a bit of consideration on his part. Am I the jerk? Edit, just to clarify, as I'm seeing a lot of her in the comments, I'm a guy. Edit 2, wasn't expecting so many responses to this and I've become quite fatigued. Haha, weak vegan, I know. So probably won't respond to any more. Thanks for all the responses. It seems like generally speaking I'm not the jerk, but there were some interesting alternate views that I'll definitely take on board too. I know the topic of veganism can be divisive. I also just wanted to clarify that I was a bit untruthful in my original post in calling it a date. I wanted to keep it non-sexual, but this guy is someone I literally just hook up with. So there's no concerns here about long-term compatibility or respect or anything. We have a good time, and I won't be breaking it off over a packet of salami. I just wanted some perspective on whether I behave in the wrong or not, which I now have. So thanks everyone. One final edit. While I'm obviously relieved to get a fairly unanimous not the jerk, a lot of comments are calling his behavior intentional or a power play, etc. I really don't think that's what he's doing, and perhaps a piece of information I should have included is he's from a country or culture that eat those types of meats a lot. So I don't think he probably views eating them in the car in quite the same way as many of you do. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like this one's kind of ping-ponging back and forth in my mind. I was thinking like, well, if it is kind of serious and you're kind of seeing this guy regularly, at that point you're telling him, no, you can't have your jerky in my car. I guess in a way it feels a bit just flat out incompatible. But I do think the overarching thing here is, it's OP's car. And if they don't want somebody to eat in their car, that is the baseline regardless of what type of food it is. So for that alone, I think OP's not the jerk. Ecstatic Act 1721 commented, not the jerk. I'm a meat eater, and if you're describing what I think you're describing, the pre-packaged Slim Jim style meats, the smell is disgusting and I would also be annoyed. I would have a talk that it's not about the meat and he's free to eat what he wishes, but the smell repulses you and you'd appreciate it if he didn't eat it in the car. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter-in-law that I'll never be her mother and to leave me alone? This is mostly about my daughter-in-law, Kat. Her mother ran out on her when she was a child and she went into foster care. According to my son, she's currently seeing a therapist. My issue with Kat is that she has repeatedly stomped on my boundaries. She's a very touchy person, she refuses to call me by my name and only refers to me as Mom. I correct her every time since I'm not comfortable being called Mom by her, and I want her to use my name. There have been multiple times where she's asked inappropriate questions, mostly about why I'm not close to my own mother. For context, my mother was horrible. Kat keeps pushing for details and insists that I should get closer to her because family sticks together. She basically tells me to forgive my mom and she doesn't understand not being close with one's parents. I've told her to drop the topic multiple times and she refuses. Because of all of this, I'm not a huge fan of hers. I've spoken to my son about it and he asked me to be patient. I've also talked to Kat multiple times and asked her to respect my boundaries. She always says she will, but then goes right back to ignoring them. This is where I might be the jerk. My daughter Sam, 20, and I are taking a weekend trip. Sam has a medical issue and needs to see a specialist a few states over. She hasn't disclosed the issue to the rest of the family yet. She plans to when she has a firm plan. Somehow, word about the trip got back to Kat, and she called me asking why she wasn't invited. I told her it's an important trip and not a fun one. She accused me of lying, claiming it was a mother-daughter trip that she was excluded from. I told her again, this is not a girls' trip. She wouldn't let it go and started demanding that she come, saying that she's my daughter and needs to be there. I said no again. She kept insisting, saying I'm her mom and she has to come on this trip since she's my kid. That's when I snapped. I told her I will never be her mother. Just because she married my son doesn't make me her parent. I told her to leave me the freak alone and that even if this was a mother-daughter trip, she still wouldn't be invited because she isn't my kid. I then hung up. My son says I need to apologize and invite her, that I'm a huge jerk to her, that I was very out of line and need to make it up to Kat. The situation has spread to the rest of the family and everyone seems to have their own opinion. Sam's getting flack too, which isn't helping, especially since she doesn't want to disclose the reason for the trip yet. Am I being the jerk and need to apologize, even though those are my true feelings on her trying to make me her parent? I think OP's not the jerk. I think it's pretty surprising to kind of hear it from the alternate side. Usually you hear stories of like step-parents coming in and being like, "Dad's home," or the overreaching mother-in-law stereotype kind of thing where, "Oh, I'm your mom now, don't worry about it." Not too often I feel like I hear a story of the daughter-in-law getting overly attached and being like, "I'm your daughter now." It's just understandably uncomfortable and crossing a boundary, especially way too quickly, if you would ever have possibly warmed up to it. Ask About Blue commented, "Not the jerk. Your daughter-in-law is trying to use you to heal her mother wound instead of trying to build a relationship with you organically. She sounds insufferable, to be honest." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not helping my broke friend because she got a tattoo? One of my friends has been complaining about money a lot recently. It's gotten to the point where 2 days ago, she said that she was so broke she wasn't able to afford to eat and was skipping whole days worth of eating because she just had no food. I felt sympathy because I've struggled a lot with finances. I still do a little bit, but not as badly as I used to. Since I'm doing okay enough right now, I offer to help her out with food. I do a budgeting plan with my meals and meal prep where I use these compartment containers and I'll make 10 portions of 3 different meals every 2 weeks. I rotate the menu based on what's on sale, then I put them into my deep freezer. I have ADHD and this works really well for me. I have a bit of extra meal stock at the moment because I don't always eat all the prepared trays before I make the next batch, since I always do it every 2 weeks. I have around 25 extra meals in my freezer right now. Since I have extra, I was originally just gonna not meal prep at the start of next week, but instead I decided to offer to drop my friend off some of my surplus so she has something to eat. I was gonna drop it off today after work, but right when I was getting off work, I was watching Snapchat stories and saw she posted one. She went and got a tattoo today as part of a Friday the 13th flash thing. I'm familiar with the artist who did the tat because I recognized their flash from their Instagram. I was considering going in for one, but didn't do it because I don't really have the extra money right now. They're all pre-priced prices and that one is $180. I don't know why, but it kind of upset me because she literally just told me about how she was so broke she couldn't afford to eat, but yet was able to pay for a tattoo. When I was struggling financially, I definitely didn't get tattoos. I messaged her about it and asked about how she was able to afford a tattoo, and she basically just said, "I'm always able to scrounge up cash for new tattoos." I then told her that I'm not bringing her those meals because if she has enough for a new tattoo, she must not be that desperate. She freaked out on me and called me a bench and said I was being classist and that poor people are allowed to have nice things, which I do agree with, but I feel like it doesn't apply to this situation. But now I feel like a jerk and my friend's mad at me. Am I the jerk? I mean, I can't lie, if I was in a position like this, I would be feeling some type of way about it. I mean, you go out of your way to help your friend, you're essentially giving money right out of your pocket in the form of this food that not only previously paid for but took the time to prepare well in advance, only to find out that you would be giving it to somebody who can apparently scrounge near $200 up, apparently anytime they want to. Unfortunately, for OP's sake, pulling back and saying I'm not giving you these meals might blow up the whole friendship and all, but I don't really fault them. I mean, at that point, if they're hurting that much, they can buy a bus ticket to the food shelter and get at least a handout. Let it be known, they're almost guaranteedly not without any resources at all. While Ticket 1413 commented, not the jerk. If she's always able to scrounge up cash for new tattoos, she should be able to scrounge up cash for food too. It sounds as if she was just giving you a sob story to get something for nothing. Significant Half 189 commented, or she had $180 put aside for food, but figured she conned OP and maybe others into feeding her for the week so she could put the money towards her tattoo. So now she has to find a new way to eat for the week. Not the jerk, obviously. Our next story is, am I the jerk for requesting to remove my thesis partner from our research, which may cause her not to graduate? So I, male, am in a college course with only 8 people, so we're all pretty close. For our thesis, we were assigned to work in pairs, and I got partnered with a woman I've already worked with several school projects before. She tends to do things last minute, but she usually does them, so I wasn't thrilled, but figured we would manage. That changed quickly. We both work night shifts, but she also has a kid. I get that, and I've really tried to be understanding, but I still managed to interview her 3 times over 3 months while she was constantly unavailable. I eventually gave up and just did the whole thing myself. I told her advisor and they made her pay for the subscription to the software we were using as compensation. But that was the only thing she contributed. Still trying to be fair, I asked her to handle our thesis defense presentation and script instead. But on the day of the defense, the presentation was unfinished and I had to fix it myself right there in the room. She arrived an hour and a half late, and the script she gave only covered 20 pages for a 45+ slide deck. After the defense, we were told to redo the encoding and rewrite chapters 3 and 4 separately so we could compare and combine. I started mine right away. She still hasn't done anything. I've been consistently messaging her to ask for updates, to follow up on her encoding, her write-up, and I just got, yeah, I'll do it, but still nothing. And I constantly see her active on Facebook and posting stories. Finally, I asked her advisor if I could submit the thesis under my name only, which would mean she won't graduate. Now people are telling me I'm being too harsh and should just carry her one last time, but I honestly feel like I've carried her through the entire thing already. Am I the jerk for doing this, even if it might cost her graduation? I don't think OP's the jerk. Hopefully most people feel that way too, but OP's the one putting the work in here. I get it, you're going through college, you work night shift, you've got kids, it's difficult, but that doesn't mean you get to do a no-show and get a free carry from your thesis partner. If anything, I agree wholeheartedly with what Seraphim Kensai wrote, commenting, "Your professor is the jerk for making anyone work with a partner for a thesis. A thesis is supposed to be the culmination of one study in a field applied to a research project and is meant to assess an individual." Kaldaka16 commented, "I've genuinely never heard of people being paired for a thesis. I'm not going to say it never happens, but I have multiple family and friends who've completed a thesis and/or work in higher education, and I've never heard of a forced 2-person thesis." Our next story is, am I the jerk for having lunch in a cemetery? I'm an introvert with a highly social customer service job, and I often need to take my lunch hour alone to recharge. Next door to my workplace is a big, well-kept cemetery. There are shade trees, small gravel paths, and benches here and there. On nice days, I take my lunch to one of those benches, eat my sandwich, and read a book. Sometimes I walk along the paths and read the gravestones. Last week, I had just finished my lunch and was packing things away when another visitor approached me and we began chatting. They said they were here to visit their parents and asked whom I had lost. I had to admit that none of my loved ones were buried here, but that I was coming here because it was peaceful and I needed a place to take a break from my work. They reacted to this with indignation. They said that I was being disrespectful. I was treating the cemetery like a personal park and I didn't care about people's grief. I apologized and left immediately and haven't been back since. But I was surprised to hear this, as I hadn't thought that I was being disrespectful. I don't think I would mind if my loved one were buried in a cemetery where people sometimes ate their lunches and read their books. I don't think I would mind if I knew people would do that in the cemetery where I was buried. I don't leave litter, I don't intrude on other people. I'm literally there to be alone and in peace. And if there was a graveside service being held, I would stay quite far away so as to not bother the mourners. But just coming to a cemetery to sit and be quiet without mourning? Eating lunch? Reading gravestones of people I'd never known? Was I being disrespectful? So personally, I don't think OP was being the jerk. Sure, they would be the jerk if they're like leaving a wrapper somewhere or like dropping parts of their lunch all over the ground or something, but I think what OP was doing was a relatively respectful thing. Not upsetting anybody, not getting in anybody's way. Now, if OP was out here and they were parked up on top of somebody's gravestone eating their Sammy, then yeah, I could see how somebody would have a problem with that. Like, could you imagine? What are you doing? I'm just having lunch with, what's this say? David. Reddit Stink Total commented, "Not the jerk. You're quiet and you don't litter, so you're being respectful. My husband takes our son to the graveyard for a nap in the stroller because it's quiet and peaceful. A friend does the same with her daughter. Nobody ever complained." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.